The massive Kraxan warship Eternal Glory hung in the darkness of space like a predatory fish, its crystalline hull reflecting distant starlight in sharp, angular patterns. High Admiral Vexthor stood on the command deck, his four eyes narrowing as they focused on the strange vessels that had appeared at the edge of their long-range scanners. "Preliminary analysis, Second Commander?" he asked, mandibles clicking with curiosity. Second Commander Zarish consulted her neural interface, the bioluminescent patterns on her scaled skin flickering as data streamed through her consciousness. "The vessels appear to be of human origin, High Admiral. Their design matches archived records from our first deep space expeditions nearly 3 centuries ago." Vexthor's upper eyes blinked in surprise while his lower pair remained fixed on the main viewing screen. "Humans? Out here in the spiral arm? Impossible. Their civilization barely managed to reach their neighboring planets when we last observed them." The vessels in question were indeed peculiar. Their hulls bore the distinctive riveted plating and external structural supports characteristic of early spacefaring races. They looked like they belonged in a museum rather than deep space, yet their massive size and unusual energy signatures suggested otherwise. "High Admiral," Zarish's voice carried a note of concern. "Despite their archaic appearance, these ships are generating power readings that exceed our best theoretical models. The energy signature is unlike anything in our database." Vexthor waved a dismissive hand, his ceremonial armor glinting under the bridge's ambient lighting. "Clearly a malfunction in our sensors. These relics couldn't possibly possess technology superior to the Kraxan Empire. We are the apex civilization of known space." He straightened his posture, making a decision. "Prepare a boarding party. These museum pieces will make excellent additions to our imperial collection. Perhaps we can learn something about humanity's early attempts at space travel." As the Kraxan warship approached the human vessels, no response came to their hails. The ships remained silent, their ancient-looking forms floating serenely against the star-filled backdrop. The lack of reaction only reinforced Vexthor's conviction that these were abandoned relics. "Launch boarding shuttles," he commanded, "and ensure our scientists are equipped with proper scanning equipment. I want every piece of primitive technology cataloged before we begin salvage operations." The boarding shuttles departed from the Eternal Glory's launch bays, their sleek forms contrasting sharply with the utilitarian design of the human vessels. As they drew closer, however, something unexpected happened. The seemingly dormant human ships suddenly came alive. Panels that had appeared to be simple hull plating shifted and transformed, revealing sophisticated weapon systems that made the Kraxan technology look primitive by comparison. A voice echoed through every communication channel, speaking in perfect Kraxan. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth Federation vessel Deception. You are attempting to board sovereign human vessels without authorization. This action constitutes an act of war under Article 7 of the Galactic Concordat. Stand down immediately." Vexthor's mandibles clicked rapidly in agitation. "Impossible. These cannot be active human vessels. Your technology is centuries behind ours. Stand aside and prepare to be boarded, or we will take your ships by force." There was a pause, and then Captain Chen's voice returned, carrying a note of what almost sounded like pity. "High Admiral, I strongly advise against that course of action. Your sensors aren't malfunctioning. They're telling you exactly what you refuse to believe. These ships are fully operational, and we are fully capable of defending ourselves." "This is absurd," Vexthor snarled. "All ships, commence boarding operations. Show these humans the true might of the Kraxan Empire." As the boarding shuttles accelerated toward their targets, the human vessels remained motionless. Then, without warning, space itself seemed to twist around them. The seemingly crude external structural supports began to pulse with an otherworldly energy, and something impossible happened. The Kraxan's advanced shields simply ceased to exist. In that moment, as alarms blared across the Eternal Glory's bridge, and his crew stared in horror at their suddenly vulnerable ship, High Admiral Vexthor realized he had made a terrible mistake. These weren't relics of humanity's past. They were proof of humanity's mastery of deception, and he had fallen for it completely. The Eternal Glory's bridge descended into chaos as warning signals blared through every console. High Admiral Vexthor watched in disbelief as his supposedly invincible boarding shuttles hung motionless in space, caught in some kind of invisible field emanating from the human vessels. "Impossible," he muttered, all four eyes fixed on the tactical display. How are they generating this kind of power through such primitive architecture? Second Commander Zarish's bioluminescent patterns pulsed with anxiety as she analyzed the incoming data. "High Admiral, the human vessels are using some form of spatial manipulation we've never encountered before. They're not just blocking our shields, they're altering the fundamental properties of spacetime around our ships." The human vessels, still maintaining their deceptively antiquated appearance, began to move with impossible grace. What had appeared to be crude external bracing now glowed with strange patterns of energy, creating cascading waves of distortion that rippled through space itself. "This is your final warning." Captain Chen's voice came through again, calm and measured. "Recall your boarding parties and withdraw. We have no desire for conflict, but we will defend ourselves if necessary." Vexthor's pride warred with his tactical instincts. The Kraxan Empire had never backed down from a challenge, never shown weakness in the face of any opponent. But as he watched his boarding shuttles floating helplessly in space, their advanced propulsion systems completely neutralized, he began to understand the true depth of his miscalculation. "High Admiral," Zarish interrupted his thoughts, "I'm detecting massive energy buildups within those external support structures. Whatever technology they're using, it's unlike anything in our records. These aren't primitive designs. They're deliberately crafted to appear outdated while housing incredibly advanced systems." Before Vexthor could respond, one of the human vessels slowly rotated, bringing its broadside to bear on the Eternal Glory. What had appeared to be simple riveted hull plates shifted and transformed, revealing sophisticated weapon systems that made the Kraxan armaments look like children's toys. Fascinating design philosophy, isn't it? Captain Chen's voice carried a hint of pride. "Your Empire's ships showcase your technology, broadcast your power for all to see. We took a different approach. We learned long ago that true strength doesn't need to be advertised." The human vessel's weapons remained trained on the Eternal Glory, but didn't fire. Instead, small sections of its hull began to change, the seemingly primitive metal plates flowing like liquid to reveal glimpses of technology that defied Kraxan understanding. "Your sensors can now detect approximately 1% of our ship's true capabilities," Chen continued. "We've adjusted our camouflage systems to give you a small peek under the hood, so to speak, a gesture of good faith, and perhaps a lesson about judging by appearances." Vexthor's mandibles clicked rapidly as he processed this information. The power readings from just that small revealed section of the human ship exceeded anything the Kraxan Empire had achieved in centuries of technological development. And if this was truly only 1% of their capabilities, how? He finally asked, his voice barely a whisper. "How did you advance so far without anyone noticing?" "The same way we designed these ships," Chen replied. "By understanding that sometimes the best way to achieve something is to let others underestimate you." While the galaxy's great powers focused on building bigger weapons and showier ships, humanity took a different path. We advanced in secret, developed technologies that could be hidden in plain sight, and waited until we were ready. As if to demonstrate this point, one of the disabled Kraxan boarding shuttles suddenly began to move, not under its own power, but guided by invisible forces back toward the Eternal Glory's launch bay. One by one, the other shuttles followed suit, their crews unharmed but thoroughly shaken. "Your crews are safe," Chen assured them. "We could have destroyed your shuttles the moment they launched. But that's not our way. The Earth Federation believes in peace through strength, not domination through fear. Remember that, High Admiral." Vexthor stood silent for a long moment, his pride warring with his duty to protect his crew. Finally, he made his decision. "Stand down all weapons," he commanded. "Recall all forces and prepare to withdraw." As the Eternal Glory's crew scrambled to comply, Vexthor kept his eyes fixed on the human vessels. Their deceptively primitive exterior now seemed like a mockery of his earlier arrogance. The Kraxan Empire had prided itself on being the most advanced civilization in known space, yet here was proof that they had been surpassed long ago, and by a species they had dismissed as primitive. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Deception, watching the Kraxan warship through various sensor feeds that were completely invisible to outside observers. The massive vessel hung in space, its crystalline hull reflecting starlight, while its crew presumably tried to make sense of what they'd just witnessed. "They're maintaining position, Captain," Lieutenant Rodriguez reported from his station, which appeared to be a simple metal chair, but was actually an advanced neural interface, disguised as vintage equipment. "Their weapons are powered down, but they're scanning us with everything they've got." Chen allowed herself a small smile. "Let them scan. Our outer hull will give them exactly what we want them to see. No more, no less." The bridge of the Deception was a testament to humanity's mastery of deceptive engineering. What appeared to be crude mechanical displays and physical controls were actually sophisticated holographic interfaces projected onto quantum-entangled surfaces. The entire ship was designed to be what humanity had termed a wolf in sheep's clothing, though in this case it was more like a post-singularity AI in the clothing of a pre-FTL civilization. "Captain," her communications officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the Kraxan vessel. High Admiral Vexthor is requesting a parley." Chen nodded, having expected this. "Put him through on the main screen. Let's give them their first look inside a human vessel." The screen flickered to life, revealing the Kraxan High Admiral. All four of his eyes widened as he took in the apparently primitive bridge of the Deception, complete with exposed pipes, hanging cables, and what appeared to be manually operated control stations. "This," Vexthor started, mandibles clicking in confusion, "this cannot be the bridge of a vessel that just neutralized our most advanced shielding technology." "Appearance versus reality, High Admiral," Chen replied, gesturing to her surroundings. "Everything you see here serves a purpose, just not necessarily the purpose you might assume. Humanity learned long ago that true advancement doesn't always mean sleek designs and obvious displays of power." She pressed what looked like an ancient physical button on her chair's armrest. Suddenly, the bridge's true nature was revealed as the holographic overlay shifted, showing the actual technology hidden beneath the carefully crafted exterior. The transformation lasted only a second before returning to its original appearance, but it was enough to leave the Kraxan Admiral speechless. 300 years ago," Chen continued, "when your empire first observed Earth, we were indeed just beginning our journey to the stars. But we also observed you, and the other spacefaring races. We saw how the drive to display technological superiority led to an arms race that consumed resources and sparked conflicts. We chose a different path." She stood, pacing the bridge as she spoke. "Project Masquerade began as a simple idea. What if we could advance our technology without anyone realizing how far we'd come? Our ships were designed to look outdated, our colonies appeared primitive, and our transmissions seemed to indicate a civilization struggling to expand beyond its home system. All while we made breakthrough after breakthrough in secret. But why?" Vexthor demanded, his earlier arrogance replaced by genuine curiosity. "Why hide your true capabilities? The galaxy would have welcomed such advanced civilization." Chen's expression turned serious. "Would they? We watched as your empire and others absorbed or subjugated less advanced civilizations for their own benefit. We saw how technological superiority was used as justification for expansion and conquest. So we hid our progress, developed our technology in secret, and prepared for the day when we would need to defend ourselves." The Admiral's upper eyes narrowed. "You speak of conquest, yet your ships carry weapons beyond our comprehension. How are we to trust that humanity won't become the very thing you claim to oppose?" Because we've had the capability to conquer the galaxy for over a century, Chen replied quietly. And we chose not to. The weapons you saw were defensive systems, designed to protect rather than destroy. Even now, after your attempted boarding action, we're having this conversation instead of a battle. She gestured to her crew, each at their seemingly primitive stations. Every member of the Earth Federation is taught that technology is a tool, not a measure of worth. Our ships look this way not just to deceive potential enemies, but to remind ourselves of where we came from and what truly matters, not the power we wield, but how we choose to use it. The bridge fell silent as Vexthor processed this information. The implications were staggering. A civilization that had managed to advance far beyond the Kraxan Empire while maintaining the appearance of a nascent spacefaring race. The political and military ramifications would shake the galaxy's power structure to its core. High Admiral Vexthor's private command chamber aboard the Eternal Glory had never felt so confining. The crystalline walls that usually displayed the grandeur of space now showed urgent transmissions from the Kraxan Imperial Council, their faces ranging from skeptical to outright hostile. "You expect us to believe," Supreme Counselor Krastel's image sneered, "that these humans, these barely spacefaring primitives, have somehow surpassed our entire civilization. Perhaps your sensors were malfunctioning, High Admiral." Vexthor's mandibles clicked in frustration. "The sensor logs don't lie. Supreme Counselor, I'd witnessed their technology firsthand. They didn't just defeat our defenses, they completely negated them. Technology we thought impossible to counter was rendered useless in seconds. Then we must mobilize the fleet immediately." Another counselor interjected. "If these humans possess such power, they represent an existential threat to the Empire." Before Vexthor could respond, his chamber's displays flickered, and Captain Chen's image appeared alongside the council members. The human captain's sudden appearance in a secure Imperial transmission caused immediate chaos. "My apologies for the interruption," Chen said calmly, "but I couldn't help overhearing your discussion about mobilizing against us. That would be unwise." "This is an outrage," Krastal bellowed. "How dare you infiltrate a private Imperial communication?" Chen's expression remained neutral. "Your encryption technology is impressive, Counselor, but like your weapons, it was designed to counter known threats. We are something else entirely." She paused, letting that sink in. "However, we're not here to threaten you. In fact, we'd like to propose something revolutionary, genuine cooperation." The council chamber fell silent. Vexthor found himself studying the human captain with new eyes. Despite holding overwhelming technological superiority, she spoke without a trace of condescension or threat. "Your civilization has achieved remarkable things," Chen continued. "Your crystalline computing architecture, your biomechanical integration systems, these are genuine innovations, different from our approach, but no less valid. We've watched your development with great interest." "Watched us?" a counselor asked, mandibles twitching. "For how long?" "Since before your empire reached the stars," Chen replied. "We've maintained observation posts throughout the galaxy, all disguised as defunct satellites or space debris. We've learned much from studying how different species approach technological advancement." Vexthor leaned forward. "Yet you chose to reveal yourselves now. Why?" "Because the galaxy is changing," Chen said. "There are threats emerging that concern us, threats that will require cooperation rather than competition to address. We believe the Kraxan Empire, despite its history of expansion, has the potential to be a valuable ally." She waved her hand, and a holographic display appeared in the center of both chambers, a map of the galaxy with certain regions highlighted in red. "These areas represent spatial anomalies we've been monitoring. Something is coming, something that will challenge all of us. We chose to reveal ourselves to you because we believe you're capable of looking past your pride to see the bigger picture." The council members exchanged glances, their earlier hostility giving way to uncertainty. Vexthor seized the moment. "Supreme Counselor, I've seen what these humans can do. If they wanted to conquer us, they could have done so long ago. The fact that they're offering cooperation instead should tell us something. Krastel's upper eyes narrowed while his lower pair focused on the galactic map. You speak of cooperation, Captain Chen, yet you've deceived us, deceived everyone, for centuries. How can we trust you now? We deceived you about our capabilities, Chen corrected, not our principles. Every time your ships encountered our primitive vessels, we responded with courtesy and respect. Every trade agreement we made was honored. Every diplomatic exchange was conducted in good faith. We hid our technology, yes, but we never hid our character. She stood, her seemingly antiquated bridge equipment humming softly behind her. We're offering you something unprecedented, a genuine exchange of knowledge and technology. Not everything, of course, but enough to help you understand that our advancement came at a price, one that we hope to help others avoid. The council chamber erupted in heated discussion, arguments flying back and forth in rapid kraxon. Vexthor watched the human captain's face, noting how she waited patiently, letting them process this paradigm-shifting moment in their own way. Finally, Krastel raised a hand for silence. You understand, Captain, that this revelation will shake the very foundations of our society. The Kraxan Empire has always believed itself to be at the pinnacle of technological achievement. Chen nodded. Change is never easy, Supreme Counselor. But consider this. Your empire became great by pursuing advancement at any cost. Imagine what you could achieve by pursuing advancement with wisdom instead. 3 months after the encounter between the eternal glory and the deception, the galaxy had changed in ways few could have predicted. The Grand Assembly Hall of the Kraxan Imperial Palace hosted an unprecedented gathering. Representatives from both humanity and the Empire, meeting as equals despite their vast technological disparity. High Admiral Vexthor stood at the observation window, watching as a human shuttle approached the landing pad. Like everything else about their civilization, the shuttle's exterior appeared surprisingly basic, until one knew what to look for. Now, with trained eyes, he could spot the subtle distortions in space around the vessel, the almost imperceptible shimmer of technologies that the Kraxan Empire was only beginning to understand. Still watching for our secrets, High Admiral. Captain Chen's voice came from behind him. He turned to find her standing there, wearing what appeared to be a simple uniform that probably contained more advanced technology than his entire palace. Old habits, he admitted, mandibles clicking in what humans had learned was amusement. Though I suspect I could study your ships for a century and still not understand half of what they can do. Chen smiled. Understanding isn't always about knowing every detail. Sometimes it's about grasping the philosophy behind the design. She joined him at the window. Your engineers are already making remarkable progress with the principles we shared. Indeed, the Kraxan Empire had begun a fundamental shift in its approach to technology. The first collaborative projects between human and Kraxan scientists had produced innovations that combined the best aspects of both civilizations, human subtlety with Kraxan creativity. The Supreme Council meets today to vote on the Galactic Cooperation Initiative, Vexthor said. There are still those who see your revelation as a humiliation, who demand we respond with military action. And what do you think they'll decide? They'll vote in favor of cooperation, he replied confidently. Not just because we've seen what your ships can do, but because we've seen what they choose not to do. Your restraint has taught us more than your power ever could. The assembly hall began to fill with delegates. Among them were representatives from other spacefaring races, invited to witness the historic partnership. Many had their own stories of encounters with seemingly primitive human vessels, all now cast in a new light. We're detecting the anomalies in 3 new sectors, Chen said quietly, bringing up a subtle holographic display that looked like an ordinary data pad to anyone else. They're spreading faster than we anticipated. Vexthor nodded grimly. The Council has reviewed your data. Whatever's coming, we'll face it together. He paused, then added, though I must ask, are there other surprises we should know about? Other technologies you're still keeping hidden? Chen's expression turned serious. High Admiral, the technology we've revealed is genuine, as is our offer of cooperation. But yes, we maintain certain capabilities in reserve, not out of distrust, but because we learned long ago that power must be tempered with wisdom. Some advancements need to be earned rather than given. The formal ceremony began, with Supreme Counselor Krastel himself announcing the historic partnership. As he spoke of a new era of cooperation and shared progress, Vexthor noticed something remarkable. The human delegation's technology, despite being far superior to anything in the room, remained disguised as simple tools and clothing. Even now, at the moment of their greatest diplomatic triumph, they maintained their philosophy of subtle strength. Your civilization has taught us something profound, Vexthor said as applause filled the chamber. True power isn't about displaying strength, but about choosing when not to use it. And your civilization has reminded us why we chose our path, Chen replied. Because sometimes the greatest victory isn't in conquering an enemy, but in turning them into an ally. As the ceremony concluded, news of the partnership spread across the galaxy. The story of how humanity had hidden its advancement, not out of fear but out of wisdom, became a legend. The tale of the eternal glory's encounter with the deception was told and retold, though few knew the full truth of humanity's capabilities. The Kraxan Empire, once driven by the need to display its power, began to explore a different path. Their ships, while still impressive, incorporated more subtle technologies. Their encounters with other races focused more on diplomacy than demonstration of force. And deep in space, human vessels continued their patrols, still wearing their deceptive shrouds of antiquity, ready to defend against the growing anomalies that threatened all civilized space. In the end, the greatest deception had revealed the most important truth, that true strength lies not in the power one possesses, but in the wisdom with which it is used. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was precisely what humanity had been working toward all along.